My name's Rob Snair from Vancouver, and
are you an alcoholic?
I
want to clarify.
Maybe I'm in the wrong meeting. And I came out here to Manitoba to get some sunshine. I've been living in a rain cloud since October, and it's nice to see the sun still exists here in the center of the country. I want to talk today a little bit about challenging people, and mostly not so much a how to, but a why to challenge. And it seems like in my course of education over, I'm 50 years old, my course of education, I've got two schools of information, and one of them comes from my life as a tree planter. And I could write, okay, Brother Will, let's have lunch.
All right.
I could write one of those books of everything I ever knew I learned, tree planting kind of things. And my second place of education was what I currently do now for the last 12 years as director of life teams. And so I'm director of what YFC has, is a school that trains young missionaries to be youth workers. So that's what I do. Our students are typically 18 to 23 years old. They're the kind of people that you have as volunteers in your area that you might think are someday going to be wonderful youth workers. And those are the kind of people that come to life teams. They spend 8.5 months with us. They live in a residential sort of situation together, and they learn a lot of YFC culture about how to be youth workers. Their faith is deepened, their character is stretched, and then they come back and become youth workers. So my role there is essentially to be a teacher and a trainer, but really I get way more out of it probably than the students do. So some of what I'm going to talk about today about challenging is what I've learned over the course of the last 10 or 12 years there. So I have this wonderful opportunity to work with a great group of young adults every year and see what God's doing in shaping their lives. And we have a variety of ways of doing that, and some of them are sort of big and extravagant ways, and some are kind of small spaces. But our job is to provide space for them to hear God's voice. So one of the activities we do is we take them caving, and this is what I would call one of these small spaces. We go caving once a year, and the caves are really small tunnels. So I don't want to give the wrong impression that like they're big rooms like this that we go into. We go into really small, really dark places. And one of the reasons we do it is to help people overcome some of their fears and anxieties. And if you can do it in a physical thing like that, then maybe you can do it in other places, like leading a workshop or leading a kid to Christ, and those sorts of things. So there's those sorts of parallels that we talk about later, right? And we talk about the dark and the light. But we spend most of the day in these caves, and I personally am terrified of doing this. I hate it. I've become very claustrophobic, and it fills me up like, I can almost feel the anxiety filling me like water, right? And then you're going, I know that feeling, right? I'm going. So anyway.
We're not going in there.
Well, yeah, we're not going in there, but so there's this one big room that we end the day in, and it's big enough so all of us here could sit in it, right? But all little tunnels to get into it. And I want us all to meet in this room at the end of the day. So our students are climbing through. And because I'm quite terrified of this experience, I bring along one of our alumni who is not terrified of the experience. So if somebody gets stuck or they need some help, I can trust that Corey would actually go and assist the people. And I can't actually trust myself that I would be able to be of any use, actually. So Corey comes along. So Corey and I are sitting in the cave, and we're listening to the students, the life teamers, coming from various little wormholes through, right? And they come in, and they like it when they get into the bigger place. And we're all there except Ryan. But you can hear Ryan come, and he's crawling along. He's right on his stomach, and he's crawling along, and he's a pretty big guy. And you can hear him breathing and then come in, and then you hear it stop. And he goes, hey guys, I'm stuck! Which is not an uncommon thing to hear during the day, that somebody's stuck. So he keeps working at it, but he goes, you can tell he's getting more frustrated, right? His breathing's starting to panic a little bit. And he's going, guys, I'm really stuck. So the group, being a very nice group of young Christian youth worker wannabes, what do? They start to encourage him. That's what we do, right? We're good at encouraging. And they go, keep working at it, Ryan. You're going to do okay. You're going to be great. Keep pushing through, all the sort of encouraging sort of words they could think of. But the reality is Ryan stayed stuck because the words of encouragement didn't help him at all. So Corey's sitting beside me, and I can feel my own anxiety with him being stuck rising, right? Which is weird. I don't know how
I feel anxiety here. You
I can hardly breathe right now.
I'll hurry through the story.
Thank you.
Can we go outside?
Open a window. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, I'm going, and I can't, I don't even want to crawl down this tunnel to help him, right? And so I say to Corey, I say, can you go and help Ryan get unstuck? So amongst all the encouragement, Corey crawls down the tunnel, and he says to Ryan, he says, hey, let me take a look there. So he shines his light on sort of the hole and says, okay, your hips are hung up on that one rock there. If you turn your hips a bit to the right, you'll clear that rock, and you'll come right through. And Ryan, in his panic, is going, I can't, I'm stuck, I can't move, I tell you, I can't. You can all hear him, right? It's echoing through the cave. And Corey's going, I know you're stuck, but if you turn your hips to the right, about 90 degrees, you're going to clear that rock, and you're going to come through. So in his panic and his desperation, Ryan rolls his hips over, clears a rock about this big, and slips through easily, crawls into the big cave, and everybody cheers, and it's all done, right? He's free. And, that's what challenging is, right? We're gonna come back to that story a couple times today, but I'm not going to retell it. We'll just come back to the essence of it, because what Corey did there was mirrored the problem for Ryan. Ryan knew he was stuck, but he didn't know why he was stuck. He didn't know what to do about it. Being encouraged wasn't going to be the helpful thing. He needs someone to hold up a mirror to him and say, this is the problem, and this is what you can do about it. And then Ryan actually had to do something about it. And initially, Ryan didn't want to do anything about it, right? No, I'm panicked, I'm stuck, I'm going to go. And we have found that working with young people, that is our demographic, that challenging is one of the most useful tools that we have for moving people along in their faith and in their personal development. And it doesn't always have to happen in the course of caving or outdoor experiences and stuff like that. It happens, most commonly it happens in our lives in just the everyday stuff, right? If we're looking for the opportunities. So challenging is describing what's going on, it's not evaluating. Corey at no point said, you idiot, look at that, you're hung up there, you shouldn't have been so careless. And he just said, this is what's happening. Take a look. So it's not evaluating, it's giving someone the opportunity to hear what things look like. And then they have the opportunity to change. Sometimes we think challenging is about winning and losing. So if I get somebody to move, then that's a win for me. If they don't change, then that's a loss. And what we want to think about when we talk about challenging is it's just about giving the person the opportunity to do something. We look at the story in Mark 10, which is about the rich young man, right? And I'll read the story in a second because I see some of you didn't bring Bibles.
Wait, you don't have it on your phone?
I don't have a paper guy. But if you hi to Dwayne's friends, the rich young guy that approached Jesus, he didn't change, right? So is that an indication that maybe Jesus didn't do it so well? I don't think so. I think it's an indication that Jesus presented an opportunity for him, but the guy decided. He makes a decision, and it's always about giving responsibility to people. And in the case of this guy, I'll read the story. It starts. It's Mark 10:17. It says, as he was setting out on his journey, a man ran up, knelt before him, and asked him, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone. You know the commandments: do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not bear false witness, do not defraud, honor your father and mother." And he said to him, "Teacher, all these things I've kept from my youth." And Jesus, looking at him, loved him and said to him, "You lack one thing. Go and sell all that you have and give to the poor, and you'll have treasure in heaven, and come follow me." So there's a number of things I find sort of interesting about that in our discussion about challenging, right? In the way that Jesus holds up the mirror for this young guy. And the first thing that I notice there is Jesus loved the young man, right? And that's where challenging starts. It starts at a love for the person that you're dealing with. And quite often for me, I'm challenging someone because their behavior irritates me, right? I'm just bugged by that, so I'm gonna, I'll get you to change because it makes my life more comfortable, which is a really poor reason. I think I see nothing in Scripture to indicate that's the right reason to do it, and I know that. But that's the struggle for me sometimes, and that's always a question I need to ask myself: is why am I challenging somebody on whatever the issues are? Is it just because I'm irritated? I would like them to change. My life would be easier if you change. And if you're married, you might find yourself asking those questions, right? Why would I want to challenge my spouse or my children, right? Because your house might be a more comfortable place to live if they change, but that's not really a good reason for challenging. The second thing I noticed, there's the man in the story. He's asking Jesus. He says, "What must I do?" Right now, that's a little bit. I find that a little bit uncommon that somebody is that blatant that they come up and say, "Hey, what must I do?" About anything, although it's possible, right? But what's implied there, I think, is that there is relationship. Jesus has relationship, or the guy's implying at least that I want you to be involved in my life. Right? And I think that's really partly where it starts for us, is we need to have relationships with the people where we can invest in them at such a level that we can say the hard things to them, right? Where you know them well enough where you can hold up the mirror and say, "This is your life. Are you happy with that?" Now, it's not entirely necessary that the person know as well as the young man in the story. He knew he had a problem, right? He says, "Jesus, what must I do?" So he obviously knew something's not right here. I need to change something. What must I do? But there's another story in 2 Samuel where the person doesn't even know they have a problem, and yet somebody challenges them, right? So in 2 Samuel 12, the story of David and Nathan, prophet Nathan, right? So David's just done all his crazy stuff. He doesn't go to war. Sees Bathsheba. Thinks she's a better option than leading his army. Has an affair with her. Realizes it's caused a lot of problems. So he sends his and Bathsheba's husband off to the front to get killed. You know, he's just does a bunch of bad stuff, right? And Nathan comes to him, and David's not asking for something there. He's not saying, oh man, I've really screwed up here. Nathan comes to him because of, and tells him a story of somebody else that reflects David, and says, now what do you think? You know, and David's livid at the guy in the story. And then Nathan says, well, that's you. That's your life. That's what it looks like, right? So it's not necessary all the time that somebody is asking for help. I think it's important that we have a relationship with them, but I think quite often people are unaware of their need. They're not like the man in Mark that comes to Jesus. They don't know their need. I think a lot of people in my life are pretty okay with where their life is. And it's a little bit about what we talked about this morning, Tim, is when life's going okay, we really don't have a need for God. We don't have a need for change because we think everything's okay. And I think one of the things we do as loving people is that we reflect something back to them that says maybe everything's not okay. And I think David needed that. I think David somehow could have swept all that under the carpet and went on with his life and said, it's okay, right? Unless Nathan came to him. So in some cases we need to challenge the behavior. Sometimes we need to challenge the thought, the belief that goes beyond the behavior, the reasons that are deeper than the behavior, right? And so, you know, I think of a story of a guy named Josh. So he's a young man, really likes his technology. He's on the computer a lot. He's on his phone a lot, and becomes sort of socially inappropriate with his technology, with his social media. He's almost constantly communicating with somebody who's not in the room. So I think I'm a bit old school in some regards, and I like being with the person I'm with, but I understand the value, and this was way beyond sort of what the norm in his age group was doing, right? So so he was challenged on it. He said, this is what your use of technology, your use of social media looks like, and it was likened to addictive behavior. So if you look at sort of the 6 leading factors of an addict and the behavior issues, he showed all of them. You know, and that was this is you look like you have an addictive. Now it doesn't look so bad when it's your telephone or your cell phone than it would if it was alcohol or drugs or something. But all his behaviors of hiding, always making time for it, and that sort of thing were all the same. Right? So that was shown to him. He actually had gone out and asked a number of people in his circle if they thought it was an issue. His peer group, every one of them said, yeah, it's an issue. Right? So very clearly, this is shown to him, right? So I think that's all it takes. You show the guy, there it is. It's like if you're eating salad and you've got all stuff in your teeth and somebody says, hey, look, half your salad's still in your teeth. You go, oh, thanks, and you do something about it, right? So that's always my expectation that if somebody says, hey, look, you got stuff all over your face, that you go clean it off. In this case, the guy doesn't. He says, yeah, but I'm not going to change, right? So what's going on there? And I think what's going on there is his values. His value for what he got out of the social media, out of having cyber friends, was far greater than what he was missing in having personal relationships. So sometimes the challenging process is much bigger than just I'm reflecting something back to you and you'll make a change. There's steps that have to happen afterwards, right? It's an ongoing thing, which is why when we come back to relationship, It's important to be in relationship because it's not going to be often it's not going to be a one-off experience where I can just say, hey, look, you're stuck. Do you want to get out? That's how you can do it. And they go, oh, thank you, Rob. That was awesome. Sometimes you get people that just say, I'm not willing to change. Right? And I don't know. So that particular young man never did change. Right? So I come back to it. So is that a failure? Is that bad challenging? I don't think so, because again, I think my role in people's lives is to give them the opportunity to take responsibility, not to take it for them. And as long as I can hang on to that one, it helps me to continue to process that. Because I find it very difficult with people that I love that don't make changes that are obviously going to move them along either personally or spiritually. Yeah.
We get trained in a really interesting model. It's called a transtheoretical model of change and motivational interviewing, and there's 6 stages to change.
Yeah.
And it's really phenomenal for us to be able to see what stage you're in when we hit this I'm not going to change. If you do pre-contemplative, meaning you have the problem, I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
And then they're contemplating, okay, maybe, and then they're preparing, then they're changing, then they're relapsing, then they're maintaining. So it's knowing what to target in that person.
Yeah.
Is, okay, I need to target their thought processes right now because they don't have a problem.
Yeah.
According to them.
Yeah.
And so it's not a failure, knowing that we can't expect change. We have to hit their thought processes and let the Holy Spirit work on them before we actually see a physical change in behavior. So
Yeah. And then it takes how long to get through those that cycle?
depends.
Yeah. Yeah, it just depends.
You
can't just get through
track
it. Yeah.
But how long they're going to take to go from 1 to 1 and back up and go forward. But at least you can track I'm getting somewhere before you actually see a behavior change.
Yeah.
So it's helpful and hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Sorry, I lost my train there. So I'm back. So that's some of the benefits of challenging is just that we're giving opportunities for people, and some really wonderful things happen when people embrace it, when they get through their sort of the process of it. So really wonderful things happen. But my experience, again, for myself and for people that I work alongside of is that we hate doing it, right? And it's a little bit like, for me, it's a little bit like the caving experience where I feel this swelling up of anxiety and nervousness and stuff. I hate sometimes when I have to go and challenge somebody, right? When I have to go and say, this is what I see. And I think there's part of that's my belief system, right? And probably a whole number of pathologies that go into that. But so on one hand, I believe that this is really good. I love this person, and I know that something good will come of that. On the other hand, but I'm nervous to do it, right? So I put some thought into, well, why would I do that? Because it doesn't make sense to me. And it seems to be two things that happen. And one being the avoidance is because I'm really afraid of something, right? And that sort of is my camp. I'm afraid of something. And the other camp is I just want them to change, right? So I'm really quick to jump in there and confront them and challenge them on their behavior so that they will change. And on both issues, I need to really examine that myself, my own self-challenge. Why do I want them to change? So anytime I have a conversation with somebody, I want to actually have a conversation a little bit with my own heart and go, what is it? What's the outcome here that I want? Why am I having this conversation? Is it because I love this person and it's for them? Or is it somehow for my comfort because of the person I work with? Maybe somebody I live with or one of my students. Is it about my comfort or is it about them? And quite often we're quick to challenge because we want something out of it. And I think that's a wrong motive. I think the second thing is I'm afraid of, and fill in the blank of what you're afraid of. And I've got lots of fears probably when I start listing them, and I'm afraid to start listing them, so I don't. But so, some of the things I'm afraid of, or the excuses I use, is I don't want to intrude on them. Right? It's not my business, and that's a bit of the attitude I grew up with in my family home, in that generation of my mom and dad. Is it's not your business. So who am I to go and talk to somebody about how they run their lives, or what their behavior looks like, or their thinking, right? So I've got those voices in the back of my head talking about that. I don't think that's right. I think Dave talked about that today, where we talk about being family here at YFC. I think as Christians we're family, but it becomes difficult then, right? Like, when do you get involved with family business? When do you become involved with your friends? And there's a lot of keep everybody at a distance. The other reason is I don't want to hurt somebody. So that's me taking responsibility again for somebody else. I think that's a wrong motive not to do something. I think my fear of hurting people can actually cause a lot of damage. I think we spend a lot of time trying not to feel bad, right, in our society. And, we do that with entertainment and sleep and drink and food and movies, all kinds of stuff, and that not to feel bad. And I don't think that sense of I don't want you to be uncomfortable with what I'm about to say is a very good reason not to say something. And again, I'm taking responsibility for your feelings. I don't think I actually am responsible for your feelings, but we own the wrong things at the wrong time. Another reason is for me for not wanting to confront is I would like people to like me, and I hate that, I think, but I don't like it, right? I run that risk. And you know what really bugs me? I work with some pretty young people, 19 years old, 20 years old, 21 years old, and I actually care what they think about me. Right? And I realize that by some of this challenging behavior, so I talked to the young man about his social media use, I run the risk of our relationship being severed, right? And in that particular case, there was a time when he distanced himself because he didn't like the pressure of that, right? He didn't like the confrontation. He didn't like the mirror, and he would even when he'd be using his phone, texting and stuff, and I would come into the room, he'd look up and try to hide, right? That makes for a very difficult relationship, and I wanted him to like me. If I challenge somebody, this is one of my bigger ones. If I challenge somebody, I open myself up to be challenged. And I think that's right, that should happen. But I don't like the fact that it can happen. And so every year, our Life Teams program runs 8.5 months, starts about the middle of September, runs till the end of May. We're currently running our 13th class, so I'm reasonably comfortable doing this program. And every year, at the end of August, I get all nervous about the fact that these students are coming, and I'm opening myself up to them being able to challenge my life. So it's the way that our program runs. It's very transparent in the sense that it's a bit of a 24/7 sort of time that they're there. I don't live with them, but they see how I run my life. They see how I raise my two boys. They see how I treat my wife. They see how I spend my money. They see how I spend my time. They see how I drive. I mean, I live in a glass house for 9 months, and they see everything. And we have a good enough relationship really early on that they feel also that they can challenge me and say, Rob, what about you say this and you do this? I mean, like, who wants that? I don't. And yet every September I open myself up to that. But I'm nervous about that. And but that's a reason. a reason why if I don't push it, maybe they won't push it. I don't think it's a good reason. I think we need to say, I don't want to uncover problems that you know are there. You just don't want to deal with it. You don't want to, I'd like to just say, here's what I see you later. Deal with it, there you go. And quite often, most of the time, that's not the case, right? I'm too busy, I'm too tired, I'm too emotionally drained, want to go home and watch Winnipeg and the Jets play, whatever. But there's just other things I want to do. And if I challenge somebody, I might actually have to take the next step. They're not all like the young man with Jesus that walk away sadly. Some of them say, okay, what do I do now? Right? And probably the last thing is I have a sense that people don't want to talk about things. And I think everybody puts off a little bit of that, right? Where they have some ideas of, I've got some stuff going, but I can keep everybody at a distance. I think people have a lot of cues like that. I think we read into that. And sometimes we just pretend. I don't think they want to talk about it. And I think one of the courageous things we can do is say, do you want to talk about that? Not knowing if they do or not. Or even assuming they don't and saying, but do you want to? And that's a hard question to ask, because then they might actually say no. And that feels kind of insulting and like a letdown. All of these things came into play for me recently